Welcome to the One Hand at a Time podcast. I'm your host, Chris Welton, and today I have a guest that brings fire and energy. Every time I hear him, see him, I just know there's going to be some powerful content coming our way. Welcome to the show, Coach Michael Burt.
Hello, sir. Thank you for having me. It's my honor and privilege to be here with you today.
Well, I thank you. Trust me, the honor and privilege is mutual. I want to talk first about how we met. Those of you that follow my show know that I do this thing called One Jordan. And I was able to get Coach Burt's shoe size and send him one Jordan. And so far I'm 4 for 4. Actually, I'm waiting for John Gordon to call me back. I haven't been able to get John Gordon to return my call yet, but I'm sure he will. So, Coach, what did you think when you received that box at your house with one shoe in it?
Well, I get a lot of things from people, but some of them are cool and some of them are just notes. But my wife said, you got one. You got one. I think my 10-year-old daughter came to me and said, "Dad, you got one Jordan in the mail today." And I'm like, "What?" and I opened it up and I read it and I thought it was bold. I believe in remarkable boldness. Number one, I believe in creativity. I believe that where there's no shortage of opportunity, there is a shortage of initiative. And so when I reward people who take initiative. And you put your number in there, you sent me a note, and you sent me a Jordan. And this has been a new trend of people sending me shoes, so I like that. I like the Jordan.
Well, I saw that you wear them, right? So that was the first thing, right? Because of course I follow you on social media, and I'm a big Jordan fan. Like if I turn the camera right now, you'd see a case full of my shoes in here, which I have a shoe problem. We can get into that a little bit later, maybe get a diagnosis from the coach on why I do that. But so for me, it was about getting in front of you and having a conversation and separating myself from anybody else that's trying to reach out to you. Because I know you're a hot commodity. People want to get to you and be near you. And I wanted to be unique and do something different. I took that idea from Brad Lee.
Yep.
He's the one who came up with that idea. But then when I shared it with my friend, Renee Rodriguez, Renee said, no, he's the one who taught Brad that. So Brad did not give him credit. So I'm giving them both credit on the call here.
Both very talented, very, very talented guys.
They are. So, my book club currently at work, we're reading your current book, Flip the Switch. I've got it here in front of me. And as soon as I started reading it, I jumped in and I just felt all this energy, and I screenshotted some stuff and I sent it to my friend Ben Newman. I'm like, Ben, if you haven't read this book yet, you've got to jump in and read this book. Let's talk Flip the Switch, where the idea came from to put that out there. And then I want to go deeper with the people that don't know you and how you got into the coaching position you're in now.
I've always been fascinated and motivated by what I call inner engineering people, or building competitive intelligence in people. And that started at 18 when I studied under Covey. From 18 to 25, I was a deep disciple of Covey's. He was always whole person theory, body, mind, heart, and spirit, and find your voice, inspire other people to find theirs. And so I was using a lot of those methodologies as a young basketball coach. But I was always interested in what really activates something inside of a person, and how can they do it for themselves? How do they show up with batteries included every day? How do we flip a switch? And then fast forward, 20-something years of me coaching all types of people. One big problem I continue to see is that people could not activate their drive every day. Large numbers of inconsistency. They didn't have the persistence it took to actually go and win. And so I'm like, you know what? This is a problem I want to try to solve. And so it was really sitting in a workshop with my wife, with the former Vietnam veteran who was in the War Dog Division of the Vietnam War. And he kept talking about going out into the jungle ahead of the infantry with a dog, and the dog having a prey drive, Preydrive. And I was like, see, I love concepts. I love concepts that stick. And so when I saw prey drive, I looked it up, animals' ability to stalk, capture, and kill prey. And I go, humans have a prey drive, but it's their ability to see it and pursue it. See what? Dreams, goals, visions, ideas, either in the mind or optically with the eyes. And I go, I think I can do something with this concept. So I quickly trademarked the concept. I'm the only person who can really talk about prey drive in humans. And then I deconstructed a theory, codified a theory, and really came up with my own motivational theory about how to activate that drive inside of a person. There's about 20 motivational theories out there. And I said, man, I'm going to come up with my own theory based on my 31 years of coaching on how to initiate a drive inside of a person. And so that's really what the book became about.
Yeah, it's remarkable because the men that are in my book club, there's about 12 of us, and every Tuesday we break down another chapter of a book. And sometimes the book just isn't, some people take it, some don't, but I'm getting so much feedback positive from this book. And I know you're going to be on our call with us in a couple of weeks just to break it down. And every Tuesday, the guys are like, is Coach Burt on this week? Is Coach Burt on the week? I'm like, no, we're on in May. But how do you keep your prey drive activated?
You know, it's actually been harder as I've gotten older because I've just been doing this for so long. I mean, this is my 31st year of coaching. And I've gone hard, man. I've gone hard for long cycles of time, long work weeks, 80-hour work weeks, pushing. And when I retired from athletic coaching, I thought, you know, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to control my schedule more. I'm gonna do this. But then I just put the same passion and intensity into this business as I did that business. But after you've done something for so many years, it really becomes a game. I mean, I think when I watched The Last Dance with Jordan, that's a great indicator because Jordan at the end of his career was tired. He was beat up. He had this pressure on him to perform every night. But he kept trying to find something, a competition, a fear of something, a losing, a wanting to be the greatest. Like he kept working to find something that would flip the switch. And that's kind of where I'm in my career. So I got new things going on, like building greatness factories. I'm building the first one in downtown Nashville, which is a big project. It's a $7 million project. It's got a state-of-the-art auditorium. It's really a place you can work, learn, grow, connect. It's a new game to play for me. I'm doing success schools with kids. I'm trying to build that out. I've just re-engineered or retooled my team. I'm constantly looking at how do I get to the next level. So there's all these things I put in front of me that serve as indicators, but I will get down in the weeds every day and make sales calls. I follow up with people. I close and convert. Like I very seldom tell another person to do anything I'm not currently doing. You know, and that's kind of what makes me different than a lot of people is, you know, I call people back personally. I talk to them. I listen to them. I coach. I mean, I'm a coach. That's what I do. So that's what brings me a tremendous amount of purpose.
Yeah, so would you say you're more of a coach than you are a speaker?
I would say I'm a coach that speaks. When I speak for an hour, like I did yesterday, 250 real estate agents, top agents that are spending probably over $100,000 a year in radio and advertising and television. When I'm done, I need a shower. It's not a talk.
Yes.
I don't know how to give a talk. So even when I tell myself I'm going to take it easy on this one, when I'm done, I'm sweating. I'm exhausted. I have poured everything I can into that talk because to me, it's like, man, I'm in the locker room. We're trying to win. I got an hour with these people. I'm going to give them right up to the minute, I'm going to give them everything I've got. And that's who I am. I'm a coach. So speaking for me is really coaching.
I tell you, if you haven't seen Coach Burt live, you won't understand what I'm about to say, but if you're a basketball fan, you will. So Coach Burt comes off the stage and he comes out into the crowd when he speaks, and he just brings this enthusiasm with him. But when I think of a successful basketball coach, I think of a guy who's sweating through his sport coat, right? And that's how I am when I speak. I warn the crowd before I get on stage that I'm very passionate about what I'm about to say. I'm not overheating. You don't need to call 911, but I'm going to sweat through this dark gray suit. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I had a coaching call earlier with a client, and I'm sweating. He goes, "Is it hot?" I said, "I'm just real passionate about what I'm saying to you right now. Like, I believe what I'm saying, so I'm not just scripted to do this." I can see where that translated over from the basketball side to the business side, and I think we need more people that bring that passion when they stand on stage instead of just rambling on about statistics. But what I really enjoyed about what you just said too was the fact that you pick up the phone call, you follow up, you call people back, you close deals. It reminds me of when I had a conversation with Ben recently, Newman, and he was talking about Coach Saban, and he said, Coach Saban is be the example. He sprints in between drills, right? So I would say that if you were still coaching on a basketball level,
yeah.
Coach Burt's running suicides. That's just that's the feel I get from you.
Yeah, and I coach my team every day internally, 9 a.m. every morning. I teach them and coach them, and then I go do it. And we had a program for a while, Chris, called Work with the Pro Day, and people paid, I don't know, $5 or $10 grand to come spend the day with me. And at the end of the day, I said, what's the biggest thing you learned? And they said, number one, I don't work like you do. That's the first thing they said. I don't talk to as many people as you do. I don't market like you do. I don't promote like you do. I don't go at the pace you do. And if I didn't learn anything else, it was about pace and intensity toward a target. And I had kind of lost that in my life. You know, a lot of people don't work at a pace and intensity. In the basketball world, you play on Tuesday. If you win, you enjoy it that night, but you got a game coming on Friday, right? There's always a game coming. It all goes to zero at midnight. There comes a time when winter asks what you did all spring and summer. You never relax, because if you do, somebody else is winning. And so because I come from that world, that's how I approach business. You know, and a lot of people don't approach it that way. You know, take the mortgage world, for example. I remember coaching a $2 billion mortgage company probably 2 or 3 years ago. And they hired me to help them get to $5 billion. And I kept saying, we got to get them into coaching, man. We got to get them into coaching. We got to get them into training. This is the way I coach people. They kept saying, here's what the CEO told me. Oh, we'll hit $5 billion easy. We'll call you, coach, when we need to bring you in. And I said, huge mistake. Because there comes a time when winter asks what you did all spring and summer. Now, fast forward, 6 months later, market turns. They lay 300 people off. And I'm like, see, we don't believe the same things. You don't coach in bad times. You coach all the time. Okay? And so that told me that was not a good fit. I can't get you to $5 billion if we're going to be casual with how we do this. That's not how you win championships. Okay? So we have all season, I get it. We have preseason, I get it. We have in season, I get it. But we need to be training all the time, just like an Olympian trains. They may peak up or peak down. They may rest. They may rejuvenate, which is very important when you study peak performance. But, man, they're in there getting better every day.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people become seduced by success too.
Yes.
Right? I think that they get to that level and then they don't realize it's not really about the outcome. It's about how we grew on our way there. And then they feel like they've won their championship. And that's why I think you see so many people in sports and business that don't repeat. They win one, and that's it, because they're seduced by the way they feel right now. That's one reason. The other one is because they don't want to do that work again.
Right.
They don't want to work that hard again,
That's right. Well, and you're really speaking the language of prey drive, because there's a section in the book where I tackle big questions. Why do people become complacent? Why do good people get lazy? Why do this? And really, when you study drive, it's complacency comes because your needs are met. Satisfied needs never motivate. Only unsatisfied needs. So what's happened in our country is people, they get satisfied. I'm making a good living. I got a good job. I got a good house. It's all good. I decrease my prey drive. That suppresses the prey drive. Now I'm not going into battle. King David was a great king in the Bible until his own troops talked him out of going into battle. Until he didn't go into battle. He stayed home. He got distracted. So this is a question I asked Tim Grover. Grover was texting me just a minute ago, right before I got on this, and we talk about every week. I said, did the greats ever lose their confidence? Because I study a lot of confidence. And he said, no, they never lost their confidence. But they did get distracted from time to time. Okay? And distract means to pull apart. So what happens is I lose my focus. I quit prospecting every day. My numbers are coming easy. I quit getting in the gym early. I quit doing things I need to do to win. I get out of the habit of doing it. Then it's hard to get back in the habit of doing it because of inertia. And I think that's what a lot of people do. So there's certain things you should be doing every single day. You should be calling on new people every day. You should be following up every day to convert people. You should be engaging with customers and clients every day. You should be planning events to invite people to in the future. Every day that you're working. Now, I take one day off a week, just like the Bible teaches. It's typically Saturday for me. Then go to church on Sunday, but I'm very creative on Sunday. So Sunday is really like a work day for me. My day off is typically Saturday if I'm not speaking. And then I need a day of rest my body, spend time with my family, hang out, do whatever I want to. And then Sunday, I'm ready to get back in the game. And typically all I need is one day. I don't need 5 days. I just need one day. One day and I can rejuvenate and be ready to go.
Do you take off scheduled a week or two a year with just the family and shut it down and step away from the business? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I operate on an entrepreneurial time system that I learned from Dan Sullivan. So I rest, I practice, and I perform. You know, like yesterday I spoke. It was very taxing. I had to go to an event last night, late last night, networking. I've had a lighter day today, but I have been coaching all morning. I have a pretty much free day tomorrow. I've got one thing on my schedule tomorrow, and then I got to speak Friday morning to a group, and then get on the plane and fly to Florida to do a couples retreat. So I look at it like an entertainer, right? I have X number of days I got to perform, but I need rest. Okay, I actually need time off to be able to peak up. Okay, and every study in the world shows how much rest top performers actually take to perform at a very high level. Because if you said, man, you got to go at that level every day, 7 days a week, top performers couldn't do it. Okay, that's why football players rest, they practice, they perform. So that's a schedule that I use. Some days my day off is Thursday, like tomorrow, relatively free of any coaching. But I got to do two things on Friday in two different states. So it's like, that's how I do it.
Was that hard for you to conform to that rest part? At least for me as a top producer, it was hard for me to realize that. I do that now, and I have a couple vacations a year where I have no email access, and I do those things. But a long time ago, it wasn't that way, because as I started feeling that adrenaline of success and things are going great, I don't want to stop, because if I stop, what's going to happen, right? And I sacrificed relationships and quality time and all those things because I was chasing that high of that money or that success. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, that's hard for me. I set very aggressive targets that are almost unreachable sometimes. And I also practice a term called mental subtractions, what psychologists call mental subtraction, which is where you pretend to give up something you love, and that reactivates your drive. Like, I love this, I love that, but it's hard for me to, because I'm such a creative, it is hard for me to take prolonged periods of time off. But I'm getting better. I'm getting better at that. I'm getting better at resting. I typically do high-value activities almost every day. I just got back from a Disney cruise with my family where we spent concentrated periods of time together. So I try to be home every night. If I'm in town, I go to my office, I work hard. I go home at night, I see my kids. I get up in the morning and spend time with my kids. I get up at 5 or 5:30 and spend time with our youngest daughter, just getting her up and feeding her and spending quality time. Then I spend time with my son. My 10-year-old daughter, I'm always looking for things to bond us together. One regret I had is, Bill, I was always working when my 10-year-old daughter was young. So I really wasn't there like I have been for child 2 and 3. And I've spent a lot more quality time with our second and third child. I've been a better dad. I've had more intimate moments with our second and third child because I was always gone when Ella was young. And it didn't occur to me, man, you need to be a better dad here. You need to be here more. You need to be around her. You need to, just have these moments with her. So I'm always looking for things to do with her, specifically now that she's 10. So, because I know they get to a level, man, they go and they don't come back. Right? And that
is so true.
That's important.
I think that's very valuable, what you just said. And I hope people really take heart with that, because here's a guy who's a top performer on every aspect and level. If you follow him, you see him all over the place. He's on a plane, he's going here, he's going there, but he realizes the importance of spending that quality time with his kids. And a lot of people don't see that from other people that are on stage or that are leading, and they wonder how they do it.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. And, I have a daughter who's 30, and I was working my tail off I had her when I was 20. So I was working super hard and making things go. And then had another daughter 7 years later. I spent some more time with her, but now they're out obviously on their own, doing their own thing. My wife and I are in the process of in vitro right now. So with God willing, we'll have another baby at the end of the year.
Yep.
And I know it's going to be way different for that child than it was for the two older ones, because I'm at a different place in my life. And there's definitely some regret there with that. So I'm glad you shared that part of it, because I don't think that's something that people are as open and as vulnerable about.
Yeah.
With that.
Well, top people, fight the same battles other people do. And, Jimmy Evans did a sermon once called Changing Failure to Success. And he talked about the 7 ways that the world measures success. See, the world measures success: fame, money, power, education, the looks. Like, the world tells you you're successful at these things. And as I was watching that sermon, I made a note and I wrote down the successful failure, because you actually could be very successful in the world's terms, but have areas of life that you go, this is one of the exercises we do at our couples retreat that we'll do this week at our couples retreat, is we say, hey man, I teach this concept called the successful failure. And I say, it's not that you're a failure, but there's probably an area in your life that you go, man, we could be doing this better. We're just, and Covey always said success in one role doesn't justify failure in another role. So I think when you really break it down, it's like, man, I'm doing good over here, but I need to do better over here. And I think successful people struggle with that because they're so ambitious, they're so driven, they're so focused, but what's it all worth at the end of the day? If at some point your kids don't want to talk to you, or they don't want to spend time with you, or they don't value your counsel or wisdom, So it's a fine line. I think people got to walk there.
Yeah, there's nothing better than your children, especially if they're the age of mine, that reach out to me and they want business advice or finance advice. And it's so powerful. My oldest daughter's an entrepreneur, owns a food truck and a catering service, and she reaches out to me for that advice on how to grow that. And then my other daughter, we've had some financial advice stuff going on with her, and it's so fulfilling when someone you love actually asks you for the advice that people pay you for, right? Like,
yeah,
when someone actually inside the family says, hey, I don't just sit across from you at Thanksgiving, but I appreciate what you're doing, and I want to learn more about that. I tell you, one of the things that amazes me about you, Coach, is that you're so well educated on the mind, and obviously you're so dialed in with reading and learning. Tell me about the journey with that. Has it always been that way for you since a young age? You love to read, you love to, because when I open your books, I can tell, like, and get on a call with you, you're so ready. Like, you're ready to go. You remind me of that fighter that's like, he fought 3 weeks ago, he knocked a guy out, and they're like, hey, can you fight again? Oh yeah, I'm always in fight shape. I think Coach Burt is always in fight shape.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. I really want to know about the learning process.
When I was 15 years old, I went to a very small rural school that was not very progressive. 500 students. I didn't grow up around self-development, but I was always coached. I was always in athletics. I was always coached. When I was 15 years old, I had a mentor who was a dentist who mentored one person from our high school every year in speaking, eye contact, writing, and he chose me. For whatever reason, he chose me. So every night after basketball practice, I went to his house for 2 hours every night. He taught me cadence, rhythm, speaking. Well, as part of that mentorship, I went to a leadership academy called the Broyhill Leadership Academy. The Broyhill family put on 1 week. I was scared to death. Something about that week changed me. See, I think that's where I got introduced to Covey initially. It was all about leadership. How do you become a great leader? And I went home and I told my mom, who was a single mom, I'm like, man, I want to be a leader. And so I started studying great coaches because I had a fascination with basketball coaches. And those coaches would say, go read this book. You need to read this book. This is what you need to do. And so at 18 years old, it was really Covey. A guy named Don Meyer, who was a great coach at David Lipscomb University in Nashville, said, if you don't read another book this year, pick up a copy of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This was in 94. And I went and read it, and I just fell in love with it. I said, man, this is life-changing material. And I just became fascinated with reading and learning and growing and certain facets of motivation and the psychology of how people act. So that's really when that started for me, and I haven't looked back, man. If I got 1 second, I'll read. If I'm in a car for 1 minute, if I'm on a bike, I'm listening to something. And so I like studying great people. You mentioned the regrets a minute ago. I'm reading Dan Pink's book called The Power of Regret, where he talks about we're taught to live our whole lives without any regrets. He actually makes the argument in that book that if you regret something enough, it will cause a change in your behavior. And he talks about 2 types of regrets: if only and at least. If only I would have done this. If only I would have done this. And what's interesting is, at least I was in the game. At least I gave it a shot. At least I gave it a try. At least I pushed it to the limit. And he talked about Olympians, if they won first, they didn't have any regrets because they won first, but if they won second, they had an if only regret. If only I'd have trained a little harder. If only I'd have shaved off 1 minute. If 1 second. He said the third person always had the at least regrets, which was, at least I was in the top 3. At least I'm on the stage. See, I can't imagine, as a former championship coach, getting to the championship game and not winning. How devastating that would have been. And saying, at least I was in a championship game. If only I would have done this one thing. Man, I think it would be heartbreaking. But the school I was at, the only other time they were in a championship game was 1979. They were 31-0 and got beat in the championship game.
Oh.
And I think about, gosh, how devastating. In a sports way. So I think a lot about these things when I'm studying, and I'm looking for a wrinkle. How can I talk about this in a different way? Because I think one of my gifts that the good Lord gave me is how to package an idea, how to package a concept. And that's what people consistently, a lot of top performers come to me now and say, man, I want to package my intellectual property. I want to package my method. And so I spent a lot of time coaching people on just that, on how to package their intellectual capital.
Yeah, I think you're one of the best at that, because I've seen proof of it. I mean, my business partner hired you as a coach, so I know that and getting him to come off the money for coaching is a big deal. So congratulations on that.
Well,
I'd say you're a closer. When you talk about about the regrets you just talked about, the book you're reading, I can think back in my life as a kid, and when I made the sports team, I was just happy I made the team.
Yep.
I didn't let myself excel or hold myself accountable to excelling. But in business, I'm not that way. I learned my lessons from that. I don't, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do everything I can to be the best at it. I'm going to jump in. I call myself the self-proclaimed king of R&D. It's rip off and duplicate. So if I see something someone's doing, I'm going to do it in my version of it, make it the best. If it's copywritten, send me a cease and desist letter and I'll stop doing it. But I think too many people try to be somebody they're not.
Yeah.
And they try to become Coach Burt, or they try to become Ed Milet,
yep,
or they try to become Tim Grover.
Yep.
What do you have to say to the people about being who you are, because you bring unique value with the person you are, not trying to become someone else?
Two things. One, there's a cycle. Kouzes and Posner talked about this in the book, The Leadership Challenge, many years ago. There's a cycle of, for a period of time, you don't know who you are. So you emulate. For me, it was Covey, right? I dug into Covey. I was like a little miniature Covey because I didn't really have my own stuff yet. So you look out and you emulate a master. Then there comes a season where you go, you know what? I feel like I have something to say. You start looking in. Then you start talking about your methods. You get traction, you get feedback, you recalibrate. Then you move on. You become the master. And people emulate you. Okay? Now, if you study mastery, and Green, I think, wrote the best book on mastery, Robert Greene. All the greats, a lot of the greats he studied in that book, studied under a master for a season, typically 4 to 7 years, right? Then they practice what they saw the master do for 4 to 7 years. Then they become a master, and other people study under them. That is a lost art in today's society. Spending the time under a master, really learning something. People want it so quick that they're skipping these cycles, which is why they're really not that good. So they may be flashy, on Instagram. They may look good, but when you really get up close to them, they don't have a lot of meat on the bone. The guys that you see that you're talking about, Newman, Grover, Milet, they all have a lot of meat on the bone. They paid the price to be great. They've got clear methodologies. They've tested those methodologies. They've been in the arena. They know how to win, which is why they make the most money, because they're that good, right? And it never ceases to amaze me how good they are when you're up close and personal, or you get to really spend time with them, just through observation. So they haven't shortcut the process, the cycle, which is what everybody wants today. I want to get there today. I want to be a millionaire tomorrow. I want to be great. T.D. Jakes preached in a church in West Virginia for 10 years to 100 people before he started Potter's House. He didn't start Potter's House and become famous. He preached every day. He cooked the barbecue in the back. He preached the sermons. He did everything. And I think that's what's missing in today's world. So people really are not that good. Now, the second thing I would tell you is when I ask people what their talents are, I never thought my work would be about helping people locate their skills, primary skills, package those skills, market those skills. But one of my most successful programs I've ever done, I think we did about $2.5 million of revenue in a virtual program I did called Purpose to Profit. And what I found is that people don't know their primary skill. They don't know how to package that skill. They don't know how to market that skill. And they don't know how to monetize that skill. And they're struggling for clarity. What is I supposed to be doing? That's why Purpose-Driven Life was selling 1 million copies a month when it came out many years ago. So a lot of my work has been helping people locate their skill set, like with BJ. What do you have? How do you package it? How do you market it? How do you monetize it? How do you bring it to the world? Okay, this is a lot about what I do a lot with top people today. But when I ask people, what are your skills? What's your primary skill? They can't tell me. They say very vague and generic things. I'm good with people. I got a big engine. I work hard. I'm like, no. Dig in. What skill do you have that's a hard skill? What problem does that solve? Who would write you the biggest check to solve that problem? Now we have something to market.
When you talk about, it's funny because you see a lot of people that they feel that you see someone you felt was an overnight success, but it was a 30-year overnight success, right? Like they got to where they are now with tons and tons of hard work. Do you think by being with the right coach who's been down that path and investing the time and money into that can cut off some of that learning curve because you're not having to face the challenges that was brought on normally?
It's the fastest way. The fastest way to mastery is who you're mentored by. Okay, when they study mastery, you're going to hear Gladwell's 10,000 hours of practice, which is true. But what he doesn't talk enough about in that book is correction and feedback. Not only do people that master something practice longer and harder, they also have coaches. They have correction. They have feedback. You can play golf for 10 years and still suck at playing golf, right?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you could hire a coach and get better at golf quicker. Now, in The Art of Impossible, which is a book I studied to write Flip the Switch, Kotler talks about expediting mastery. And you could actually cut the learning curve off to 4 years if it's real intense, long cycles of practice, immediate feedback. And he used motocross, skateboarders, extreme sports. And you know why? An extreme sport person is not afraid to break bones. They'll go out and try new things every day, break an arm, break a leg, and get right back on the bike and do it again. So they speed up the cycle because they're willing to they got no fear. And that's how you speed up mastery. But who you're mentored by drastically speeds up the cycle to mastery and production.
I think that's so true. And, I have a business coach that coaches me. He's been a huge help the last 18 months I've been with him. And I've been working one-on-one doing some stuff with Ben Newman. It's been incredible. And I'm hoping that it takes some of that curve off where I'm trying to go. But I want you to do the comparison with if you're coaching someone to be better in basketball, shooting free throws, whatever that is, to someone who wants to be a better speaker. I want to talk about like the kind of reps and stuff you think someone needs to get in the comparison there.
If you look at speaking, and there's two things I do on speaking. I do the Michael Burt School of Speaking, Coaching, and Writing, which is really the business of speaking. There's 700,000 people in the United States that call themselves a coach. Average income of those coaches is $47,000 a year, which tells me they do not know how to monetize their skill set. Okay? So there's the business side of speaking, packaging, coming up with a concept, packaging a concept, marketing a concept, getting on stages, speaking. Okay? Then there's the science and art of speaking. How do you connect to an audience? How do you take people on a journey? Yesterday a woman at this event I spoke at said, man, I didn't know how you're going to get us from A to B, but the way you got us from A to B with the stories and the impact and the emotions and right? I think Ben Newman is really good at this. And how it's like you're taking me on this journey and you're hitting me. And it's like by the time we're finished, it's like, boom, we got there. And it hit every emotion I had. I laughed. I cried. I'm ready to take action. As a result, a woman walked up to me and said, I haven't been in coaching in 12 years, but that 1 hour with you told me I'm ready to get back in coaching. Okay, so I think there's two sides of the speaking world that you got to get good at. So I do something called Master the Stage with Tim Story, who is great at connection. He's spoken in 70 different countries. He's a pastor. So we do the art and science of connection, speaking, how to make a connection with an audience. Then I do the other things, which is really how do you make money with this? How do you make an offer? How do you invite people? How do you enroll people from a presentation? Because I've done presentations that have produced, a 2-hour presentation that produced $500,000 of revenue in 2 hours with an audience of complete strangers. So there's a science to that. See, I've had coaching on all of that. How to connect, how to tell a story of origin, how to make an offer, how to make a multi-million-dollar offer. All of those things I've been coached on.
Yeah, I remember you telling the story when you're on stage, and it brought so much, gets people on the edge of their seat, right? And that's something I've been working on a lot personally with, Rene Rodriguez. And
Yep.
Rene and I've been working on that. He's helped me master some stuff on the stage and really work hard there. But the story is what separates you, I believe, from everybody else. that gets on stage before or after you. Like, I felt bad for anybody that was going to speak after you that day. Like, it's one of those things, right? You knew that it was going to be really hard for someone to get out there and compare to what you just brought. But that's tons and tons of reps, right? I mean, like, you've been just mastering that craft all the time. Do you practice that consistently still today to try to make sure you bring more and more value every time you get on stage?
Yes, and I spent 6 months with a guy named Dave Blanchard, who owns all the rights to Og Mandino's work. He's really a specialist at connection, intrinsic validation, agape love, how to really touch people at a deeper level, which requires vulnerability, touching people in a spiritual level. That was very valuable for me. And so I think when it comes to the practicing, yes, a lot of mine is natural, though. It's a lot of instinct. So sometimes it's hard for me to teach a person how to shift gears in a talk. I can feel when I need to shift gears. I can feel when I need to take it down. I can feel when I need to bring it up. I can feel when I need to tell a story. I can feel when I need to tell something emotional. So it's very instinctual for me, because I've been coaching for so many years, to connect with an audience. And so that part, so a lot of people come to me and say, "Will you watch my talk and give me feedback?" And I say, I don't do that as much. I do it part of Master the Stage, but I don't do it a lot, because it's hard for me to teach you that instinct I have.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes from reading the crowd you're in, right? Knowing the audience and seeing where they're at. And I would agree, you're definitely a master of that, and that's something I've been working on myself, is watching the reactions I get as I tell the story, and should I continue going deeper with that, or should I take it in a different vertical, deliver the same message, but change how it's being delivered? I feel that's a big separator with speakers who get invited back and ones who don't.
Well, I spoke at a conference in Orlando not long ago to educators, and it did not land what's called a direct hit in the speaking world. And I left kind of frustrated. And I asked the guy who brought me in what happened. And he said, in 23 years, they've never had somebody push them like you pushed them. And he said they didn't know what to do with it. He said they loved it, but it pushed them so hard. He said, we've never had a professional speaker. He said, we typically bring in people, but not at your level. And he said they didn't know what to do, because it just pushed them so hard and that's kind of my style, is I'm kind of getting back to what made me a championship coach, which is pushing and trying to tap in. And some people are going to like that, Chris, and some people are not going to like it. Some people go like, man, I don't. And some people go, I loved it. I'm ready to get in it, because I'm really trying to quit messing around with people and say, look, I can help you, but you gotta be ready to go when I push you here. And so I'm trying to do that harder with my audience, to say, this is who I am. I'm gonna push you just like what made me a championship coach, as hard as I can. And some of you gonna walk up and it's love when I finish, because some people that I push and they can't take it, they walk right out and won't look at me. Like I was there yesterday at the end saying hi to everybody. The people who I scared would literally look away and run past me. The people that I hit would stop and go, dang, like that moved me. And that's the people I'm looking for. So if I could separate out in an hour, who's serious and who's not serious, then that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Again, another powerful statement by you. I know, because I've seen it in person, so it's easy for me to realize that. If I hadn't seen it in person, it'd be hard to understand. But you're a master of separating the people who are interested and who are not.
Yep.
Right? Let's don't waste our time with the pretenders.
Yeah.
And as we start to wrap things up, I want you to tell the story about when you were coaching basketball and the parent came to you and he talked about the potential. Of his I think it was his daughter had the potential she had.
Almost all the parents would say to me, my kid's been playing since she's 4 or 5. We would typically get 150 kids try out. I could only keep, on a good year, 30. That was a big number. So I had to cut, 75 plus kids, which was heartbreaking. And the mom and dad would come to me and say, man, my daughter's got a lot. I would say, tell me about your daughter. My daughter's got a lot of potential. That's the first thing they would say to me. But she needs something. And I would say, what do you think she needs? Structure, discipline, focus, accountability. And then they would say she needs a good coach. She's got all this potential. She needs a good coach. And I would say, I got a real serious question for you, but I got to ask you, is your daughter watching you reach your potential? And they would go,
oh.
And I would say, isn't it hypocritical for us to tell our children they have potential if they're not watching us push, dream, strive? See, my kids watch me get up every day and go get it. My wife watches me get up and go get it every day. And if nothing else, just by them watching their dad go get it every day, I got to believe that my kids will say, this is what you do. Dad gets up every day and he goes into battle. He fights for us. He believes in what he does. And my 10-year-old daughter, who's a handful, my 10-year-old daughter is a handful. Very strong-willed. She can get emotional. I've got a sports psychologist coaching her right now. She said to me one day when I went out to the car, she said, Daddy, go pro today. And she said, because amateurs, they ain't never going to make it, Dad. And I had never said that specific thing to my daughter. She's heard me say it to my students. At some point, you got to leave your amateur desires behind and make a decision to go pro. And that word decide means to kill something off. And if you want to make the pro money, you got to go to the pro level. And we have amateur desires, amateur feelings. And when I left that day, she said, go pro today, Daddy, because the amateurs ain't never going to make it. And I thought, that's cool. It's catching, because I never said that directly to her. She's heard me say it. And we went to dinner one night in Florida, me and my wife and my daughter. She said, Dad, I got some concepts I want to package up. And I want to do a clothing line called Jesus Girl. I want to do a boot camp. I want to do some things at the lodge. I need a landing page. And I thought, this is my 10-year-old kid, man. She's talking about packaging, and she sees a vision in her mind for doing boot camps around it. And she wants to do a clothing line. And I thought, man, that's cool. I'm proud of you.
That's amazing. And it just goes back to what you hear. Things are caught, not taught by our kids. And you didn't go teach her that specifically, but she caught that from you and from the actions. Watching your dad consistently go pro gives me chills just to think about that. What a powerful conversation that had to be. So I want to wrap things up here with you, Coach. And I thank you so much for being on the show. But if somebody wants to go pro, they want to take it to the next level, they want to learn more about you, what's the best way to connect?
I think if they're serious and they're watching this, they reach directly out to me, coach@coachburt.com, and just put, I'm serious. Yep. I'm ready to go pro. I do
a
lot of things. I'm doing a 4-week series called A Confident Mind in May. It's $97. It's my way of just contributing to people. Everybody should be on that series, where I teach you the best of confidence. I do boot camps. I do retreats. I do coaching programs. So just the first thing is get in the game. Follow me on all the social media, Coach Michael Burt. I put out a ton of content. I document a lot of what I do every day. And my hope is that it inspires and breathes life into people and helps them play at their potential.
Yep, there's no doubt about it, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do for everybody that watches and listens, and appreciate what you've done for me writing the book and calling me and connecting. So I'll never forget the conversations we've had. Thank you so much, Coach.
You're the man. God bless you. Look forward to working with your team.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the One Hand at a Time podcast today. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and share. I'm often asked if I'm available for speaking opportunities or accepting new coaching clients. The answer is yes. Feel free to click the Calendly link in the show notes to set up a 30-minute call with myself. And remember, as we move forward in life, we do it one hand at a time.